Hi, hello, I'm Sam Harrison. I read, review and discuss fantasy and science fiction books. Today I'm going to be talking to you guys about other fantasy series that I want to read that are not The Wheel of Time. So, the thumbnail / title for this video I have planned is Should I Take a Break from The Wheel of Time? I just want you to know up front, that was clickbait. I'm not taking a break. I'm fully planning on reading at least one book a month from The Wheel of Time until I finish the series. But there are several other series that I have been kind of eyeing out of the corner of my eye and thinking to myself, maybe I should deviate. Because you may not know this, but I set some rules up for myself when I started reading The Wheel of Time. And my rule was I could only read series that were trilogies or less. So that put out, kind of put out of reach a lot of fantasy books. So one of the things that I had, so I was like, well, I can read a trilogy. Like, for example, I can read the Lycanius trilogy. So I actually don't have any plans to read Lycanius for the time being. One of the big things that people say about Lycanius is that you need to binge read it. So if I know I don't have time to binge read it because I'm going to be reading a Wheel of Time book every month, I probably want to hold off on Lycanius until I've finished Wheel of Time. But I could read it under the rules. I was able to read the first Powder Mage book, Promise of Blood, because that is one of a trilogy. I then discovered that there's a lot more books by Brian McKellen in that universe. So technically I've already broken the rules. I allow myself to read sci-fi books of longer than 3 books, so sci-fi series. So that's why I'm reading Sun Eater, which is on 6 books. I'm reading Red Rising, which is on 7 books. So I'm allowing myself these breakaways from the 3 books or less rule. And I'm mostly coming to think to the point that maybe that 3 books or less rule is a bit arbitrary. And maybe I should probably just read what I want and start more series and see what I really love. So while I really love The Wheel of Time, and I have absolutely, as I've said, please be assured, I have zero interest in pausing the series. Currently, I might feel differently when I get to the slog in a few books' time, but for now, I love this series. I can't wait to read more of it. I'm currently reading it, and it's, even though I've been having a bit of a tough reading month, every page that I read of this book, I'm loving. So, big fan. But a lot of people are telling me that I should read something else. That something else is Joe Abercrombie and his First Law series. I could use the First Law, the multiple trilogies rule to read some Abercrombie, to read the First Law. And I don't think I would be completely unjustified in doing so because the trilogies are very separate. So Abercrombie wrote the First Law trilogy, he then wrote 3 standalones, and then he wrote a sequel trilogy. All of these books get completely rave reviews. I mean, usually with books like this, you'll end up getting somebody who loves the first... you don't get somebody who loves the later books but thinks the first one is just okay. And that is not what I'm hearing about Abercrombie. I also know that my buds Ross and Laura are big Joe Abercrombie fans. They met him recently and he pitched and recommended their channel, which is pretty cool. Basically everyone loves Joe Abercrombie. It sounds like something that I think I would really enjoy. Also, the books are a little shorter. I've seen the trilogy box set in real life, and it's like the size of a single Wheel of Time book. And that doesn't even take into account the paper-thin pages and the tiny, tiny font in the Shadow Rising. But I should probably stop complaining about that because it, if anything, makes me more excited to read it. But First Law is something that I thought about reading years and years ago. Before I even really got back into fantasy, I saw people raving about it kind of outside of the BookTube space because I didn't know BookTube existed. And I've just kind of thought, like, you know what, actually, maybe I should give this a try. So I did buy the first book. I have it on Kindle, and recently the whole trilogy has been added to Kindle Unlimited, which I pay for and love. So a part of me was like, well, actually, now it's all there. Maybe I should just read it. So that is something that I am probably going to start reading this year. What I might do is let you guys like vote at the end. So when you finish this video and you've seen all of the books that I'm talking about, you can write a comment down below and tell me which one I should prioritize, and maybe I'll add the first book from that series to next month's TBR if I have time. Next up, I have another beloved, especially by the Hardy's Books fam, author, which is Robin Hobb. Now, actually, what do I have in this? I have a vehicle registration certificate that I'm using as I'm just going to slightly hide that. I have a vehicle registration ticket in here that I'm using as a bookmark because I was reading this last year before I started the channel. Somehow this book copy has unfortunately been absolutely destroyed. I would imagine that a cat or somebody has gotten to it, or a child. I say completely destroyed. It's a bit mangled, but the front cover is fine. I love these covers, by the way. So I got through the first section of this book, and I say got through, I loved it. I really enjoyed the first book. I think Ship of Magic, I think it is the best Robin Hobb book that I've read. I love the multiple POV. I love the mystery. I love the world. I love the characters. And I really enjoyed Ship of Magic, and I absolutely devoured it, read it really quickly. And I was going on holiday when I was about to finish Ship of Magic. I had like 20 pages left or something mad. So I packed Ship of Magic and I packed Mad Ship. And the problem was I had just binge read too much Hobb in a row. So I had read the whole Farseer trilogy and went straight into Live Ship. And we're not talking like how I read now, where I read like one book a month. I read the entire Farseer trilogy in like 2.5 weeks, and then I read Ship of Magic in like a week, and then I went straight into Mad Ship. And that was honestly a huge mistake. I was just too hobbed out. I was hobbed to the max. I was hobbed beyond the max, you might even say. So I put this book aside because I just was like, I want to read something that isn't Robin Hobb. And nothing against Robin Hobb, because her books are excellent, but I just wanted to read something different. And then I never picked it back up. I think I read Jade Legacy instead, or something similar like that. And I just never got around to picking it back up. I think I would probably restart the book when I do come back to it. My big qualm for this is that these books are even bigger than The Wheel of Time. Look at this. This is mad. Look at that. We're talking about, so The Wheel of Time, Shadow Rising is a 1,000 page book, roughly. And this is much bigger. And the final book is bigger than this. So, and obviously, The Realm of the Elderlings is also a 16-book series, which is more books than The Wheel of Time. So, this one, I have to say, whilst I am interested and I want to read more, I think I'm very unlikely to pick up this book again until after I finish Wheel of Time. So if this gets voted for, I might not read it, but I might do. You know, we'll see. Robin Hobb is great though, so if you haven't read any of the books, read the Farseer trilogy. It's fantastic. Next up, we have a much lesser known series, and this one actually would fit into the rules. And it would fit into the rules because it's a duology. So I read these when I was like 17. It is the Kingbreaker duology from Karen Miller. Literally nobody, I've never heard anyone talk about these on BookTube, and I really love them. I mean, look, this is cool as well. Like, look at that. That's pretty cool. I've never heard anyone talk about these. I bought these when I was about to go on holiday somewhere, I think, when I was a teenager, and read them both on the holiday. Absolutely loved them. I have recently found out that there was a sequel book as well. So is this technically a trilogy? I don't know. But these two books do tell a complete story. because I had no idea that there was anything more to tell in this world. This would be a big reread project for me because obviously it's two fairly chunky books. But I bought them because I was like, I'm going to commit to doing a couple of rereads, and I want to reread this, and I would really like to reread Magician by Raymond D. Feist and maybe a couple of other books in his Rift War cycle. But these are the priority for now. And I'm tempted to try and read them this year. And they would fit in the Wheel of Time rules, so I could do it. But the basic concept of this one is the main character is a fisherman's son, and he suddenly finds out that he is able to do magic. And he's brought into like the kind of royal palace and society, and is raised up to being a mage. And he becomes incredibly powerful, and that's kind of where Kingbreaker comes from. I remember very, very little about these books now. I had to basically skim read the back to give you that description. All I had remembered was that he was a fisherman and he became a mage. Really loved this series. It was very hard to find based on that, but I knew it was a duology, so that made it easier. Duologies are very cool, obviously, because you get a full story in 2 books when most fantasy series are 3 or 4. But yeah, so excited to read this one. And it would fit within the rules, so maybe I should take a break. Well, not take a break, should add one of these books to a future month. Here's a big boy, okay? The Dragonbone Chair. So, The Dragonbone Chair is a book that a lot of people have said they really loved. So, Philip Chase, Mike from Mike's Book Reviews, and Petrick from Petrick Leo have all said that they loved the Memory, Sorrow and Thorn trilogy. And this is the first book in that trilogy. I got it for £1 from a secondhand bookshop, and it has been sitting on my book pile. I have a pile of books which is unread, unsure if I want to keep forever books. And it's been sitting on that pile for since before I started the channel, I think. It's a very long and very dense, very small font book. There are a lot of sequels. This is technically a trilogy. So you've got The Stone of Farewell and To Green Angel Tower. But To Green Angel Tower was split into 2 books. There's other sequels. There's a sequel series, which I believe one recently just came out in. So there's a lot to read in this world. And while I know absolutely nothing about this one, the way that people have been talking about it makes me interested in reading it. Apparently this one was a big inspiration for Lycanius. And I haven't read that either, as we discussed, but could be fun. And it's nice to inject some more old kind of classic fantasy. I think this came out, let's check, it'll say at the front, won't it? Here we go. So this came out in 1988. So much older book than I would normally read. I think most of the books I read are like 2000s and onwards. So this could be a fun diversion, fun change of pace. But a couple of older books that I have read recently I have not really liked. So I would kind of be taking a chance on it, and it is a very long book. So unsure yet whether that's one that I want to read. But here is the final book that I'm here to talk to you guys about. And this is kind of semi the purpose for making this video, if I'll be honest with you. And it is Cardens of the Moon by Stephen Erickson. This is the first book in the Malazan Book of the Fallen series, 10-book series. Absolutely massive series, incredibly popular, incredibly well liked, but also thought of as like one of the densest and hardest to read fantasy series. The Broken Binding is releasing special editions of Malazan this year. Those special editions are going to be £50 a book, and you have to buy them in 3 book box sets. So £150 for 3 books, which is a lot of money for a series I've never read. And so in my mind, I'm just thinking to myself, should I read Gardens of the Moon in May or June so that I am informed enough as to whether I want to take a chance on the Broken Binding editions? Because I am one of their sci-fi subscribers, so sometimes sci-fi subscribers get a slightly preferential, like we get like access just before it goes on general sale sometimes for the fantasy books. Don't know whether that'll be the case with Malazan, but there's a very high likelihood that I will have the opportunity to buy these. So I'm thinking to myself, if I'm going to spend that money, do I want to make sure that I'm not spending it and going to regret it? I do know that you can sell broken binding books, and that they most often, especially for popular ones, will sell for a lot more than you've paid for them. But I'm not a huge scalper fan. I'm not a big into that sort of process. So I would rather just read up front and then kind of make the decision. So yeah, that's why I want to read Malazan, basically, so that I can either avoid or what's the term? Something reinforcement. When you make a bad decision and you want to be reassured that that decision was actually a good one. It's like when you buy like the worst games console of a generation and all the best games coming out elsewhere, and you're like, it's fine because we've got Panzer Dragoon Saga. So that's what I'm doing with Malazan, is basically going like, well, I might not like it, but if I do like it, then the £150 isn't a waste. What do you guys think? What should I read? Malazan would be a 100% breaking of the rules. I don't think there's any way that I could fit that within my Wheel of Time read-along rules, which, as I've said before, were no more than 3 books in a series. Most of the series that I've read have been like trilogy, sequel trilogy sort of thing. One of the things that I also was kind of interested in reading was Malice by John Gwynne, his Faith and the Fallen series. That's obviously like 7 books. I love John Gwynne, having read his Bloodsworn Saga books, and I would kind of like to see where he came from. So there is also that. And I think that's pretty much it when I'm coming to like series that I haven't read that I'm highly interested in. Like I said before, I'm interested in Lycanius, but that is one that I kind of want to binge read, and I'll probably do a video that's like, I read all the Lycanius books in a month sort of video next year sometime. So subscribe to the channel, stick with me, and we'll talk about all of these books eventually. But will that be after next March when I finish Wheel of Time, or will that be sometime between now and then? You decide. You vote in the comments down below, and the most picked book I will read. If it ends up being The Mad Ship by Robin Hobb, I might wait to read that until after SPFPO stuff is done. But if any of the other books win, I will read those shortly. I'll read those in the next like 2 or 3 months. So if you've got all the way to the end, pop down in the comments and write down the book that you want me to read. And I will try my best. I'm not promising anything, but I don't like giving up on books, so I probably am promising to read it. Thanks so much for watching. As always, leave a like if you like this video. Leave a comment if you would like to chat to me about any of these books, or anything that you want to recommend to me as well. If you want to recommend to me standalones, trilogies, even longer series that I could read while reading Wheel of Time that wouldn't like be too competing, if that makes sense, on the same sort of energy and wavelength of Wheel of Time, then please do let me know. If you would like to subscribe to the channel, I'd really appreciate it, as every subscription grows this community, gets us closer to that magic 1,000 where I can start asking YouTube to pay me for the amazing views that you give. So thanks so much for watching, and I will speak to you tomorrow.